Okay. The next bit is I promised to be that it was going to be about more Oracle stuff. I have next to me a few cards left over from my big, huge truck size spread that I did yesterday. There were actually 6 Oracle decks in there and a set of runes, you guys. 29, 31, 31 different elements in the whole of the spread. It was a bit much, even for me. But I had lots of fun looking at it because it was my plan for the month, my plan for the lunar cycle, new moon spread really, and what I'm supposed to be doing with my channel and all that. So it made sense to me to sort of get groups of cards led out, showing me, well, you know, what the result of the spread for me was basically a couple of things. I need to be aware that I like to be a bit more rational about things. There's an emotional side to things, and there's a rational side, of course. And I tend to be to lean towards the rational side more, and to be, I can sort of transmute the rationality in the ratio into activity easily enough. The emotional side is there, I need it. I have to be receptive to certain parts of my life around me. I have to be in tune, I have to be in balance, in a state of equilibrium, I suppose you could say, emotionally as well. So I have to look at that as well. However, what I am going to present on my channel, to some extent, it will be about things I've discovered, things I've seen, and things I can easily talk about. And there's lots more. There's always lots more for all of us, isn't there? So the cards that I had out, these 2 cards, they're my small Minchiati deck. There really are those 2 sides. The Magician for the active and rational side, the side that is capable of organizing things, right? And getting things done and getting processes started and all that, and making magic to a certain extent. Yes, definitely. And there's the Ace of Cups right there, which I think is a really beautiful card. Always to keep me centered in myself, to know that it is right what I'm doing, and that's rather, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge sometimes. So the other decks that I used were basically the Visconti Sforza, and it was the 4 cards, the 4 of Swords and the Queen of Wands, the Star and the Judgment, from my memory. And I felt that's what I started out with, and I felt that that wasn't enough. So I just went along complementing those cards each time by several others. And I used the Greenwood Tarot as well. I've sort of coupled 2 Greenwood cards to each of the Italian Renaissance deck cards, and this is the one that came out on the Judgment side. It is 2 wolves, right? And the reason I'm showing you this one in particular, there was lots of patterns with deer, stags again, which is of course cool. There were a couple of patterns with birds in them, which are really pretty. And this is there were archers, 2 cards with archers together. Like, it was like there was all these lines coming from, you know, different storylines, as if you like. And there's one storyline in particular that goes deeper than the others, and I was rather interested in presenting that particular storyline. And it begins with this. To me, this is a natural wolf, the animal, and there's a spirit wolf underneath him, and it looks like he's wounded. Then again, he also looks like, because he's a spirit to me anyway, he looks like he's walking in a different world, right, under the earth, in the underworld. And in between those two, I just wanted to point that out, in between those two there's a rock with a hole in it and a ray of light passing through the hole. And to me that is almost exactly the same rock as this one, which is it's a photograph of an old, probably Neolithic even, or yeah, late Neolithic megalith in the south of Germany, and it has what they call in Germany a Seelenloch, a hole for the soul to pass. And I suppose I should have Googled this before I got started on this, but it's the same, it's the passage. It's a passage to the other world, right? So I thought that looked so similar that I had to show those to you together. Anyway, and the other interesting bit, there's two more interesting bits about the spread, really. I took out my runes for the first time in like forever, and I made these myself, also, of course, the ice rune, Isa, and this one is an Ear, earth rune. It's not part of the original Futhark, and I have had a lot of trouble getting a handle on runes in general, because also, just like with the Ogham that I went into in my last episode session, there is a cultural background to the runes, just like there is a cultural background to the Ogham, and I went into that for the Ogham, saying it has to do, there's the significance, the layer of significance of the tree names, and then there's the layer of the lunar calendar that you have to have some sort of knowledge of if you want to understand what the original Ogham mysticism really is about. I think, at least, to be historically accurate, you have to factor in the whole lunar calendar business. There are other alphabets. Like, it seems like the original Greek alphabet has a seasonal cycle to it as well. Like, they used the names of the letters and the meanings attributed to each of the letters to each of them has a position in an order, and the order is that of the year, of the yearly cycle. So it's easy to remember, right? For people who are not literate, who haven't had, lots of schooling, this is really a nice way to have a memory aid, I suppose. I don't know, haven't been able to find whether there is a seasonal correlation for runes as well. There are medieval rune poems, several, that have been found in old manuscripts, both in the British Isles and in Scandinavian parts of the world. And they have meanings attributed to each of the runes, and that is what people work with who work with runes, right? So there's a set series. It's the same. A Futhark is the first couple of letters of the first line of 3 lines that contain all the runes, and then depending on what period you're referring to or that you're using, you will have 8 or more runes in each line. So 3 times 4 equals 24. Okay, so the Isa rune, ice, it stands for ice, for winter and whatever meanings you want to attribute to ice. That's an old school rune that's always in every Futhark. It will be there whichever alphabet you choose. But this one, the AR, isn't. And I made this, when I made the other ones, I just rolled little pebbles of clay and, pinned out the, using a stick or something. I worked out the runes, letters, for each of them. and had them dry, and then I sort of baked them in the fireplace really for a couple of hours. And you have to, if you ever do that kind of thing, it's real great fun to bake your own. You have to make sure there's small items. You can bake small items in a fireplace. If the fire is hot enough and you let it sit in the hottest part of the fire for at least 2 to 3 hours, so that they're really red hot, so you can see that they're red hot, then they will bake to some extent. They're still a bit fragile. You have to be careful with them. But it'll work. I made several goddess pendants and that type of thing in that way, and I can wear them for years. They're really quite tough from the fire. So that's in parentheses, right? That this AR rune, it just came out. All the rest of almost the whole of the rune set that I made for myself is the traditional Futhark, and there are a couple of little alterations that I made to some of the letters because I like them better that way. I like a Hagal, the hail, the rune for hail, hail, the ice falling out of the sky type hail, to have 2 bars in the middle, okay, rather than a single one. I think that's Anglo-Saxon. It's a British Isles type shape for that rune. So that's just a little detail, an aesthetic matter, okay. But I made this one as well, and I had to look it up. Actually, I found a couple of sites online where I found information on this rune, and it turns out it is a rune for hell, for the goddess of the dead and the underworld, and I think it's Niflheim where she lives. I'm not sure. I have to look it up again. But I was quite interested that a part of my spread, getting back to the whole spread thing, has to do, obviously, still has to do with working with the ancestors and working with the other world. And it is important to me. And the last card I will show you, it'll introduce, I hope, a series of other videos that I will be making on meditation, what I do when I meditate. I think that's something I can, talk about in a useful way. And this is one way that I go about meditating. It's a really small card, so bear with, please, because you have to kind of figure out what all this means. What it means is, okay, there's a tile floor. I hope you can see that. This is me sitting on a chair, I think. Let me see if there's a chair. Yes, there's actually my meditation chair. There's a chair reserved for meditating. I only sit on it when I meditate, okay? So that's important to me. I don't use this chair hardly ever for anything else. I will maybe sit on it once to tie my shoelaces or something like that. But other than that, it is reserved strictly for meditation purposes. And it looks like this as well. It's an old prayer chair from a church, I suppose, from a Catholic church. Let me see if I can get this a bit closer. I have drawn underneath this a sort of a glowing circle or ball that represents my Earth Star chakra. It's something that we will be going into. That is my connection to the Earth line. So there's an Earth line going down, and that is an essential part of how I go about meditating, because I need to do a lot of energy clearing, and that's a whole mystic field right there. What you see on this side is there's a white light coming from the top, and there's what will look to most of us like a spirit or some form of self-contained, focused consciousness, awareness, or even just an opinion or a stance about something that has survived inside the earth for the longest time. And some of that is personal to me, and then I have to go about working with it, or find a way to figure out whether it is still relevant to me or not. There is also a lot of energy in the earth that I can sort of come into contact with via my earth channel, as I call it, and it's not personal to me anyway, but it can be relevant to me, for example, because it was relevant to my parents or my family, historically relevant. So there's all sorts of different approaches, and most times what I will try to do is find a emotional connection, first of all, to the energy configuration that is there, to that. It's not really a person, it is just a construct, right? But it is kind of alive. It kind of responds to energy when it is invited to. So you have to make contact, you have to find out what it is, what it wants, and if it is at all possible, I will try to connect it to the white light so that it can move out of the earth and be done with us. And we can be done also with it, because I do this because I feel it. I feel the need at least twice a week. Recently, I find that my mind is bogged down. I am slow. I feel incapacitated. I feel angry or upset even. And if I sit down to look at what is going on, there will be all sorts of energy elements. Most times they're in around me, or they're in my mind field or somewhere. Not a minefield, a mind field. Can be a minefield as well. That really works to slow me down. That's the basic similar feature in all of these exercises and energy clearing type activities, is that I go to do it because I need it, because I feel restricted. That's all. Something is just dragging me down, slowing me down. I'm feeling almost forced to have certain type thoughts, and it's a big influence on me. It's really strange to finally be talking about this, but it's a big part of my life. I do this, like I said, twice a week or maybe once a week, depending on how often I need it. I have had several rather, to me, impressive experiences where I visited a place and I have become rather attuned to all these energies around me. When I visit a big church, big old school, old type medieval church, like I described when I visited Chartres in France, I have visited several other churches in the past couple of years, and there have been stories to tell, proper Halloween type stories, where I get a splitting headache. I do my clearing exercise. I do my focusing, inviting the ghost to go to the white light again exercise. And after that, I feel very much better. So I thought it'd be useful to share that part of my life with you. And I think it has everything to do with what is right here with those cards. It isn't just about me personally, or even the psychological parts of things that I've been talking about, the creative processes I have been showing some results of to you already. It isn't all about astrology, which is rather maybe a theoretical branch of things, right? There's a lot more going on, and I will be coming back to this theme. I will call this an earth clearing or an earth healing approach, I think, consistently, so we both know what I am going on about. and we will see where we go from here. But at least now you've had a tiny bit of an introduction. And there's a lot on the web about chakras and about the aura and about different levels of energy and all that. And I think, personally, I think it's a bit of a mess, and it would be useful to do a bit more, to spread, to not state the superfluous or the obvious again and again, not that. And if there's ever any questions you want to ask me about this, please feel free in the comments. I will see them, and I will answer them if I can. All of this is my personal developments, okay? I'm not telling anybody that you should work in the same way or anything like that. It wouldn't cross my mind. So I hope you find all this interesting. It's partly personal, partly scientific, yes. Let's go explore all these different fields of awareness, because I think we're not limited to what we are used to knowing of ourselves anymore. So we're not limited to that. There's so much more going on. And I will see you all, guys. I will see you soon. Thank you so much for being here.